People are going to be struggling to try to stay warm.
Edmonton police continue taking down homeless encampments as temperatures drop.
We are on schedule on our Nunavut 3000 plan.
An important announcement for more housing in Nunavut.
I love everyone in this room right now. Thank you.
And history is made at last night's Golden Globes. Good evening and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Savannah Kelly. The family of Noren Tates, a First Nation woman who died after she was assaulted in her home community in northern Manitoba, spoke out at a press conference in Winnipeg today. They were reacting to news that a manslaughter charge against an accused was stayed. Sav Jonza has more.
The voice of the late Noren Tates singing her favorite song filled the room of a press conference in Winnipeg today. Tates died in hospital 2 days after an assault in Opaponapiwin, Cree Nation, north of Winnipeg, left her with life-threatening injuries back in February 2023. At the press conference, her family shared news that the manslaughter charge against Philip Sollier for her death has been stayed.
This has reopened the wounds of our loss and has left us in a state of shock and disbelief.
Her sister, Arla Tate Linklater, says the family was told in late November that the charge was stayed because there wasn't enough evidence. She calls on the public to share any information they may have on the events leading up to her sister's death.
We believe that there are individuals who possess crucial information that could help shed light on this heinous crime, and we urge them to come forward and assist law enforcement in the pursuit of truth and justice.
AMC Grand Chief Kathy Merrick was there to support the family. She says that cases like this often can't move forward due to a lack of participation from people involved.
So to me, that's a conspiracy of silence in our First Nation communities when people do not come forth. And they have every right and they have a responsibility to come forth with something that they are very much aware of.
Arla Tate Linklater is critical of the RCMP investigation and says officers should have followed Tate while she was airlifted from OPCN to Winnipeg.
The time that it took the RCMP to get to the hospital in Winnipeg where my sister took her last breath, it's not acceptable. They should have been there.
In an emailed statement, the RCMP said the injuries were reported to RCMP on February 19, 2023. Noren Tates succumbed to those injuries on February 21, 2023. An arrest was made and charges were laid on March 6, 2023. Sav Jonza, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
An emailed statement from the prosecutor's office reads, in part, the Crown directed a stay of proceedings because the evidence was insufficient to prove this accused had the exclusive opportunity to commit the unlawful act in question. Edmonton police are continuing to close down encampments of homeless people in the city. On Sunday, police found a body as they tore down the 7th site. APTN's Chris Stewart has been following the story for us. Chris, what's the latest?
On Sunday, Edmonton police dismantled the 7th of 8 encampments they have deemed a public safety risk after a temporary court order gave them permission. Justice Kent Davidson gave them a temporary court order to do so 3 weeks ago. But he also said those moved must have shelter space available to go to. In a release, the city says they were informed by the province that there was enough shelter space for those who want it. The city says 20 structures and 15 people were removed. At this site, near 94th Street and 106th Avenue, the city statement said a body was discovered in a tent before police arrived. But police say the death doesn't appear criminal. There was also a propane tank explosion with no injuries reported. The city says the explosion and finding the body are not related. Temperatures have dropped sharply with lows well into the -30s this week. Jim Gurnett is a housing advocate and says that with this extreme weather, many of the people who have been displaced will not be in shelters and will be facing the elements without protection.
People are going to be struggling to try to stay warm, in a much more extreme setting than if we had just left them. It's really a nasty thing to do with this weather change.
On Thursday, a hearing in an Edmonton court will determine if the Edmonton police can continue dismantling encampments. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
We want to hear what you think about the Edmonton police dismantling homeless encampments or any other story you see here tonight. Here's how to continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X, previously known as Twitter. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. It's a new year, and one First Nations-owned organization is looking at a new way to tackle the Onreserve housing crisis. Ontario-based Kiwewin Capital is looking to private markets rather than government to address the crisis. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
Onreserve housing projects like this one in northern Saskatchewan have largely relied on government funding in the past. But Kiwewin Capital CEO Tracy Smith says it's time to look to private markets for these funds.
I really don't think necessarily the answer always has to go to government. Yes, the government is legally responsible, and we should definitely in tandem hold them responsible for that accountability of our treaties. But at the same time, a lot of organizations are looking for government guarantees, and they're looking for government to set aside more money. And, governments only have so much money per year, right?
The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation is a partner with Kiwewin. The plan is to fund the building of about 500 homes in First Nations communities in Saskatchewan and Manitoba over the life cycle of the pilot project. Smith says First Nations are good banking customers, and the myth needs to be dispelled that they don't pay back their loans.
There's this perceived notion that Indigenous people don't pay back their loans, and there's no proof of that. If anything, there's more than enough proof that Indigenous people pay back loans better than Canadian mainstream do. And you'll probably get any financial institution, saying the exact same thing.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
There was a major housing announcement in Iqaluit on Friday for a territory in desperate need of more homes. Trevor Wright brings us more.
Federal Housing Minister Sean Fraser announced $27 million for housing in the territory. Iqaluit will get $8.9 million. According to Fraser, this money will help lower costs and allow each community to adopt their own housing strategies.
The value that we receive for these investments will make a meaningful difference, not simply by paying for the construction of new homes, but by changing the rules and practices around how homes get built.
The funding is coming through the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation's Accelerator Fund.
The kinds of changes that are being made through the leadership and creativity of local levels of government include the establishment of a private land development framework that's going to help reduce the cost of building.
It's expected 450 units will be built in 22 communities over the next 3 years, and over 3,100 over the next decade. In Iqaluit, downtown density restrictions will be removed to allow larger 6-story buildings. Nunavut MP Lori Idlaut says this wouldn't be possible without the people of Nunavut.
This is how important your vote is as Nunavut. This is why you must exercise your right to vote at all levels, municipal, territorial, and federal levels. Voting does make a difference, and when you make sure that you elect people that you feel can make a difference, that will work hard for you, then you will see the results.
According to the Territorial Housing Minister, this is a very significant milestone for its goal of building 3,000 homes by the end of the decade.
We are on schedule on our Nunavut 3000 plan. I believe we had a very significant meeting yesterday with the Minister, and moving forward, we look forward to more announcements like this to ensure that on the Nunavut have a safe environment so which that they can call their home.
Fraser said more details will be unveiled once housing agreements with all 22 communities have been signed. Trevor Wright, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
We need to take a quick break. Coming up, the first First Nations woman to serve in the RCMP in Manitoba discusses her 30-year career and what made her decide to leave. Welcome back to APTN National News. A former Anishinaabe RCMP officer is making a career change from being a poster child as the first First Nations female officer in Manitoba to playing a role in a landfill search to find the remains of 3 Indigenous women near Winnipeg. Our reporter Tamara Pimentel has Marge Hudson's story.
Looking back on a 31-year career with the RCMP, Marge Hudson from Barons River First Nation says her life has come full circle.
I loved wearing my uniform. I was proud to wear my uniform. But it was tough.
She was the first First Nations woman to serve in the RCMP in Manitoba. Hudson was accepted into the force in 1979 after a friend encouraged her to join.
He said, Marge, you got accepted into the RCMP, but can you promise me something? He said, please don't ever quit. They think you're going to quit because you're Indian.
Hudson held on to that promise for 3 decades. She says she was subjected to racist acts during her time as a constable, and it started at the police academy. Indigenous candidates had 3 months of training rather than the regular 6 months.
We were given brown serges instead of the red scarlet serge. I just went with the flow because we were the first minority that they hired.
Hudson claims her abilities were always questioned. She was never given credit for solving cases and never promoted. In one case, Hudson says she was asked to drive an intoxicated female home while without a gun and 6 months pregnant. When they arrived at the home, the girl pulled out a gun.
The second I floored it, she started shooting. And then I pulled over, and she went back in the house. So I called for help. 6 months pregnant with my son, I was shot at. Did they care that I was out in the field with no gun, in maternity clothes? No.
Constable Marge Hudson left the RCMP in 2009. In July 2020, she filed a class action suit against the RCMP on behalf of herself and other members who allegedly experienced racism in the RCMP.
There is a lot of systemic racism still today. I see it. I know it. People tell me. The people in the RCMP tell me. It is very much alive, and they really need to do something about it.
Hudson is now signed up with ISN Musqueam, Canada's first Indigenous Emergency Operations Centre led by Indigenous police specialists. It was created to fill a gap for First Nations-led emergency responses.
They know who I am. Where the RCMP for 31 years did not know who I was. That's why I say there's no comparison whatsoever.
ISN Musqueam is playing a key role in planning a search for the remains of Mercedes Myron, Morgan Harris, and Buffalo Woman in the Prairie Green landfill north of Winnipeg. A July 2023 feasibility study says a search is feasible.
Where at some points in the RCMP would be brushed off, now to going in full force, the search will happen, and we will find them. There is no other way.
After an emotional career with the RCMP, Hudson says she can finally focus on helping the Indigenous community. ISN Musqueam is working on a final report for the search, and that deadline is mid-January. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
It was a busy year for news in Saskatchewan. Our reporter Rachel May looks back at some of the top stories of 2023.
In the Prairie Province of Saskatchewan, 2023 was marked by stories of human rights and justice, RCMP turmoil, healing from tragedy, and unmarked graves. In March, the long road to justice for Adelia and Narissa Cuisance cleared another hurdle as they were released by a justice at Court of King's Bench in Yorkton on bail.
We're home free, and I just want to thank the judge, and that's all I have to say right now. Thank you, and my family being here and all our support. A relief.
The two sisters from the nearby Kisaku Soto First Nation were convicted of killing farmer Anthony Dolph in 1994. The cousin of theirs confessed to the crime and served a prison sentence. The Cuisance sisters have always maintained their innocence.
A big step en route to the minister's eventual decision, because the purpose of this is to get their convictions quashed so that their names are cleared.
In Treaty 6 territory, the Prince Albert Grand Council demanded to be included on the Saskatchewan Police Commission Board. The calls for more Indigenous oversight came after months of turmoil and recommendations released by the Ministry of Corrections and Public Safety that examined the troubled force after the death of multiple Indigenous men.
The comprehensive report resulting from special inquiry contains 4 to 5 recommendations, each holding a key to more just and secure future. It is imperative that we act upon these recommendations without delay, and we owe it to the families who have endured unimaginable pain and to our community as a whole.
It was a summer of healing and reflection as James Smith Cree Nation gathered to give thanks, a year after a mass stabbing shook the Saskatchewan First Nation, which left 12 people dead.
There's still a lot of hurt, a lot of pain yet. That will go on for a long time. But we need things like this happening, getting together. It will slowly take the pain away from us.
Community, including families of the 11 killed in the mass stabbing, came out to celebrate their culture and heal. Elders and knowledge keepers want to pass on what they know to move forward in the community's journey towards healing.
And they are trying to reach out. It'll take some time for them to adapt to that tragedy. And the ones that were also heard outside, I guess, the extended families, those are the ones too that, there's a lot of stories, horrific stories out there. And yet there's a lot of resilience out there that they're balancing themselves to move forward.
And data confirmed what survivors had reported for decades. Community members from the English River First Nation and the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan gathered in Saskatoon to reveal the results of their ground-penetrating radar search at the site of the former Beauval Indian Residential School.
And what we found was heartbreaking and devastating. To date, there are 93 unmarked graves, 79 children, and 14 infants.
Dawn McIntyre coordinated the ground searches with a team of elders. She said they responded strongly to the news.
Most, if not all, of these unmarked graves are believed to be children, and at least 14 of them are believed to be infants. And this is based on the measurements of the soil disturbances that were detected by the GPR.
More than 200 people turned out for a memorial walk in Saskatoon honoring the memory of Megan Gallagher. Her remains were found in an area on the South Saskatchewan River. Debbie Gallagher says Megan's case was one of more than 100 cases of missing Indigenous people needing resolution in Saskatchewan.
There's still 137 families in Saskatchewan missing a loved one. That's long-term, over 6 months missing people. It's not over.
One of the things that's overshadowing it is the starting of the pre-trials for the 6 of the more serious charges. So immediately following the walk on the 18th, Monday morning, we'll be in court for the pre-trials for the first of the first-degree murder pre-trials. And what we're looking at in terms of that is 6 pre-trials booked within the next couple of months, and each one of them is scheduled to last for a week. So,
Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
We need to step aside for one more break. Still to come, history was made at last night's Golden Globes. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. This is the view from Fort St. James, located along the shores of Stewart Lake in the heart of British Columbia. Thanks to Keith West for sharing this great shot with our viewers. Be sure to send your pictures to share@aptn.ca if you would like to be featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Over to the east coast, -3 in sunshine in Halifax, -6 in St. John's. -14 in sunshine in Nain, Kuujjuaq, snowy, -16. Val-d'Or, flurries there, -8. Quebec City, -8 as well. Peterborough, 2 degrees there. Sault Ste. Marie, -1 in flurries. Kapuskasing, snowy, -8. Big Trout Lake, -16. God's Lake, -18 there. Puckatawagan, -23 in snow. Winnipeg, sunshine and -15. Barons River, -16. Swift Current, snowy and -2. Saskatoon, -11. Stony Rapids, -26 there. La Ronge, snowy and -22. -22 in Peace River, -25 in snow in Fort McMurray. Calgary, 0 degrees. Edmonton, snowy and -13. Tofino, rainy, 8 degrees there. Quesnel, -3. Fort Nelson, snowy and -24. Rainy and 2 degrees in Prince Rupert. Beaver Creek, snowy and -17. -44 in sunshine for Old Crow. Norman Wells, -39 in sunshine there. Yellowknife, -33. Paulatuck, sunny and -29. Tuktoyaktuk, -38. Baker Lake, -29 and snowy there. Arviat, -21. Clyde River, -21 there. Igloolik, sunshine, -26. Lily Gladstone hails from the Blackfeet Indian Reservation in Montana, and last night she became the first Indigenous person to win a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Motion Picture Drama. She portrayed Molly Burkhart in the Martin Scorsese production Killers of the Flower Moon, a historical account of how several Osage people in Oklahoma were killed in the 1920s by a ruthless white spectator who wanted their lucrative oil deposits on Osage territory. Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro also headlined the movie.
This is for every little res kid, every little urban kid, every little native kid out there who has a dream, who is seeing themselves represented and our stories told by ourselves in our own words, with tremendous allies and tremendous trust.
And that's all the time we have tonight on APTN National News. For news anytime, visit our website at aptnnews.ca. I'm Savannah Kelly, and from all of us here at APTN News, Marcy Miigwech, and thank you for joining us this evening. Have a great night.